Hello and welcome to Inspired Sports, your place for clean sports talk with real inspiration. I'm Alex Pratt alongside the Scott Jakeway.
What is up, Alex? I am excited to jump back into this. I like your jerseys, loving the Steph Curry, and is that a LT?
That's an old school
That
LT.
is,
That's right. The
that's what I
original
thought.
fantasy
That's
football
what I
king.
thought.
That's right. It's LaDainian Tomlinson. It's probably, as a Chiefs fan, it's the only Charger jersey I would ever let touch the wall behind me. But I mean, it's the powder blue. LaDainian. It's not like it's like the updated powder blue. It's not the original cool one, but still,
But
a little shout out to the
it's
original
legit.
fantasy football king, LaDainian Tomlinson, who won everyone their fantasy football league for like 6, 7, 8 years in a row.
If you had him, you won. That's about it. That's all there was to it. There was nothing to
Game
argue.
over.
Game
And then
over.
I had to throw a little Curry up. It's
Little
NBA
Steph.
season is rolling. We're
Yeah.
like 10 games in, 10 days in. I mean, it just feels good.
I went with the Cubs jersey one last time. I feel like with this baseball season coming to end, I had to give just one last shot to baseball. And the Jakeway jersey is still hanging, but you may notice, and so do our viewers on YouTube, might notice
Mm,
the baby cowboy jersey is sadly gone. It
that was the
almost
agreement
it
that you
it
left it
almost
up
stayed.
until they lost. We wanted to see if it was a good luck charm.
Yeah, they almost did it, but Dak decided to step out of bounds like a rookie quarterback, and that's the only Cowboys talk we're gonna have for tonight.
Wait, no, hold
Because
on. No, let's get into it.
no,
I want to rile up the Cowboys fan.
no,
What was more disappointing? Let's see.
oh,
The fact that Dak stepped out inside like the 2 yard line and missed out on a touchdown, or the fact that Dak threw the ball short of the end zone on the last play of the game where CeeDee Lamb was easily tackled. What is more frustrating? Or the penalty and the sack 2 plays before? You tell me.
well, I think it has to be the stepping out of bounds, simply because that would have set them up to be within 3 points, and then the other stuff wouldn't have mattered. We could have kicked a field goal, gone into overtime, won it an OT. The fact that he steps out of bounds sets us up in those last 2 minutes to have to do all those other things. Rely on the refs to give us those questionable penalties, but as a Cowboys fan, not going to deny those. And then, yeah, not throwing it into the end zone. Come on, CeeDee Lamb is amazing, but he is not that good. So,
He's not
uh,
breaking 7 tackles. He was literally
no,
surrounded by 7 guys. Okay,
literally, if it
so tell me
no,
this: Are you part of the Cowboy Nation that is so upset with Dak? You're screaming for Trey Lance. You want to start the Trey Lance
uh,
experience?
I believe that has been my cry for this entire season so far. That has been my desire. I am a Cowboys fan through and through.
Done with
Dak
Dak.
Prescott, no, Dak can go sit on the bench. I'm done.
This is not an instant reaction. That was Sunday
No,
Night Football, but let's
no.
jump into our instant reaction for Monday Night Football. The San Diego, I called him San Diego. Can you believe that? It's because the LaDainian Tomlinson jersey is hanging behind me.
It's all
So
good.
that's why that came out. So it's
Yeah.
okay for me to call them the San Diego Chargers
They
just for
will
tonight.
always be the San
The
Diego
Chargers
Chargers.
beat the Jets. The Chargers beat the Jets tonight. Justin Herbert had 16. He was 16 of 30 for 136 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Kind of an uneventful Justin Herbert game.
Very
And
vanilla.
Austin Eckler had a solid game. 47 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 23 yards receiving. Somehow the Jets allowed Zach Wilson to throw the ball 49 times. I don't know where that was in their original game plan. I'd bet that it wasn't part of it. But he was 33 of 49 for 202, no touchdowns, and 2 fumbles. The Jets
Yeah.
defense had 8 sacks, and they forced 3 fumbles. So I ask you, Scott Jakeway, what is your instant reaction to Monday Night Football?
At this point, if I'm a Jets fan, I'm really thinking a one-legged Aaron Rodgers has to be better than what Zach Wilson is putting up. I mean, throwing almost 50 times and not getting in the end zone once. I mean, come on. And 2 fumbles is inexcusable. I think Aaron Rodgers with one Achilles heel would be much better than what Zach Wilson is doing. And to be quite honest, as much praise as Justin Herbert is getting, in his early career, very vanilla game. No
Yeah.
TDs, no interceptions. It was kind of like just straight down the middle. But hey, I guess if your team is winning 27-6, there's not a whole lot you can complain about. So good on the Chargers. Jets, I think you're just continuing down the path that we thought you would with Aaron Rodgers being on the bench. So that's kind of my take. What about you?
I have two thoughts here. The
Okay.
first is last, for our last episode, I declared that the Raiders needed to clean house. I
Yeah.
literally said they needed coach, GM, quarterback, all of it, and then
All
they
of it.
did it.
And
Josh McDaniels is
all
gone.
three. I
All
mean,
three, right?
Garoppolo.
And
Yeah,
they
Garoppolo is
won.
just.
They won this Sunday, right?
Yep.
They needed a
They,
fresh, clean start. I called it. I don't feel good about helping the Raiders as a Chiefs fan, but I'm glad that they accepted my wisdom, and I'm looking for the consulting check in the mail that they owe me. But I think it's worth noting that it might be time for the Jets to really think about cleaning house as well. Robert Saleh has done a great job with the defense, but this offense it's sad. And if
yeah.
you retain Robert Saleh as your head coach and you want to do this, again, you want to keep that defensive core together and you want to run this back next year, I'm going to say you may think that one-legged Aaron Rodgers is better than Zach Wilson, but they need to be done with both. It's
Yeah, that's true.
over. Stop. They need to be done with both. They need to draft
Yep.
a rookie quarterback, play this game again, reset the clock, and they need to just that Aaron Rodgers and on one leg and coming back after this injury is not going to be the solution. So
No.
that's my first thought. My second thought is if they were really committed and they really believed that Aaron Rodgers had a shot at coming back, then they would have done what the Vikings did and they would have went and gotten Josh Dobbs. We watched Josh Dobbs this past weekend come in with
Yep.
almost no time. I think he was there for 3 days, maybe. He wasn't even
No.
he didn't even
No
start the game.
practice.
They brought him in. He led them
Yeah.
back, and they end up winning the game. And
Yeah.
you have in Josh Dobbs a professional quarterback, someone who doesn't look overwhelmed every time he drops back like Zach Wilson does. So if they really believed in Aaron Rodgers coming back this year, that's what they should have
It's
done.
true.
So I'm just the Jets. It's such high hopes this year, and it's really just turned into a mess. And I feel the same way about the Chargers. I am screaming from the rooftops. Justin Herbert needs a new coach. He needs an offensive-minded coach to
Yep.
unlock all of his talent and ability. Right now, he is succeeding despite the coaching staff there. I thought Kellen Moore would get more out of this offense this year, and it just hasn't been that
Right.
impressive. So you see the Chargers, they're doing Charger things. They're finding ways to lose games they should win,
Yep.
and they're hovering around 500. So the Chiefs are just sitting atop that division again, laughing at the dysfunction below them in Denver and in Las Vegas and with the Chargers. So that's my thoughts on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
But I mean,
can't
hey,
disagree.
we're always going to
Yeah.
watch. It's always a good watch.
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing else going on. Baseball's over. Basketball's not quite into the fun, of the season yet. Of course, you're gonna watch Monday Night Football. What else you got to do?
I'm going to watch
It's
Monday Night
Monday.
Football. It's just part of life.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
part of Monday life. But we have some
Yep.
more questions, and we want to ask. Did that just happen? My question to you, Scott Jakeway, is: did the Ravens just become the best team in the AFC?
Hands down, I think Lamar Jackson is leading the Ravens as the best team and as the best quarterback in the AFC. Lamar Jackson is doing Lamar Jackson things. He is killing it with his completion percentage, 71%. And that includes throwing it downfield. He's not just chucking these 3 or 4 yard passes. The guy is handling defenses. I think that overall they don't have any competition in their division. I think that they are going to end up being at the top of the conference. Being number one is not something that is far fetched. Of course, you have teams like the Chiefs that are going to be always there to give them a run for their money. But
No,
if
you don't
Lamar
have
Jackson,
teams like the Chiefs. I'm
yes,
sorry, I can't handle this anymore.
yes.
You don't have teams
Listen,
like the Chiefs. You have the Chiefs. End of
no,
sentence. There's
you
no
have
one like
the
the Chiefs.
Dolphins, the Chiefs, and you have the Ravens. And if Lamar Jackson can play like he has been playing, they're on a 4-game winning streak. If he can, they are outpacing I think they're like plus 116. In their
Keep your
games.
plus whatever. I am trying to use the manners that my mother taught me to not interrupt people, but I cannot hold it back any longer. Listen, you can't say teams like the Chiefs. There is the Chiefs, and then there is everybody else, especially in the AFC. It's the way it's been for 5 straight seasons. And especially, how are you going to bring up the Dolphins when the Chiefs just beat them in Germany?
I mean, it
There's
was in Germany.
the Ravens are having a great season. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Of all the teams the Chiefs could face in their inevitable destination of the AFC Championship game,
Not
the team
happening.
I am most afraid of is the Ravens. But they're still second tier because the Chiefs are in
No.
a tier by themselves. They can win in any sort of game. That defense just took the Dolphins and held them to 14 points. That
Okay.
defense is young and fast and will shut Lamar down. And Patrick
Time out.
Mahomes will just get out there
No.
and do everything he needs to do.
Lamar Jackson versus Patrick Mahomes this season is not even a question. Lamar Jackson is by and far. Not only are the Ravens better than the Chiefs so far this season, but
Stop. Don't you
Lamar
do it.
Jackson is by far better than Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, listen, Patrick Mahomes is the number 3 name,
What?
the number 3 name on the Chiefs right now. You have Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, and then Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's not even the number 1 name in Kansas City right now. So if Taylor Swift is drawing that much attention, that means that your team is not playing as well as bandwagon fans like you are claiming they are. Lamar Jackson, the Ravens,
That this is
number
there
one.
is wow.
No,
There is so listen. There is absolutely no doubt. To everyone listening, Scott Jakely doesn't believe a word he just said. This is entirely
what?
him trying. This is revenge for me bringing up the Cowboys and making him talk about the Cowboys last season, intentionally trying to rile me up right now about the Chiefs. This is inauthentic. This is a lack of truth. This is fraudulent. Don't believe it. It is all fallacy. Now,
Listen,
here's the truth, and I'll leave it alone here because otherwise we're going to end up doing half an hour on the Chiefs versus the Ravens. Okay. Lamar is fantastic. Lamar,
okay.
listen, every team, there might be 5 teams in the league that would not give up every quarterback they have for Lamar. Okay. But you say they have no competition in their division, and the Bengals are getting hot. The
No,
Bengals are a team to watch. Their defense is getting better. Joe Burrow is heating up. He didn't get the preseason time, and he's having to use the regular season to get up to speed, and that offense is starting to come together. Uh, you can't discount the Bengals. They are a legitimate contender for that division. And I think, yes, the Ravens, they are on a heater. There is no doubt. And they are excellent. And it's not because of OBJ, that's for sure. But
yeah, that's for sure.
they're not, there's the Chiefs and then there's everybody else. They're not the best team in the AFC.
Wow. Clearly,
Wow,
for
exactly.
everyone that
Stunning. It was
knows
so good. It
Alex
was so
Pratt,
good. It made him say, wow.
clearly everyone that's listening, watching, whatever, however you consume this podcast, knows that Alex Pratt is more of a Chiefs fan than I am a Cowboys fan. And so everything he
That's
is saying
right. That's what
has
success in Super Bowls will do to you.
no, what I meant to say is that there's a slight angle that Alex Pratt will throw on any stat to make the Chiefs look a little bit better than they actually are. Don't get me wrong; they're
That's what I
easily
do.
the second or maybe the third best team in the AFC, but there's
It just
no chance that they are the number 1 team.
I'm done
There's
with you. I'm moving
no.
on. I'm moving on,
Okay,
Scott
all
Jakeway.
right.
Did that just happen? Did that just happen? Did CJ Stroud just lock up the Rookie of the Year award?
Again, there's no question. I know that I earlier in this season I was calling for Bijan Robinson to, win the Rookie of the Year, which I still think he has a good shot. But after this week's performance, I think CJ Stroud has just literally, kind of like you said, the Chiefs and everyone else. I think right now, at least at this point, halfway through the season, it's CJ Stroud and everyone else. I mean, the man just made history this week, putting up 5 touchdowns and throwing more passing yards than any other rookie ever in a single season or in a single game. And he did that with 3 receivers landing over 100 yards. That's hard for someone like Patrick Mahomes to do, let alone a rookie quarterback on the Texans. I mean, we're not talking about CJ Stroud being on a team like the Ravens or the Chiefs who have a all-around team. We're talking about the Houston Texans who before this year or before the start of the season, we were talking about them possibly having the top pick again because of how bad everyone thought they were going to be. And he's got them in the running for possibly making a wild card push to the playoffs.
Yeah,
And so I
absolutely.
think that he absolutely has to be far and away the midseason winner of the MVP. I don't think there's anyone else that could touch him with the stats that he's putting up. And if he can stay healthy and he can continue to put up 75% of the same stats in the second half of the season, I don't think there's any chance anyone else gets close.
I I want to argue with you, and I need to give a quick shout out to Puka Nakua, who I think is doing an incredible things as a rookie receiver for the Rams.
Yeah.
But come on, this is this. If there's in any year there is a quarterback who excels, they're gonna win Rookie of the Year over any other position. So shout out to Puka Nakua, but this award right now is locked up for CJ Stroud as long as he can
Yep.
continue on a reasonable rookie trajectory as a quarterback. I
Yep.
want to disagree because and I'm going to admit it to all of our listeners, I was not a CJ Stroud believer. You were.
No, you
I'll
were
give
not.
you your props. You were in
Yep.
on CJ Stroud, and I said, all I needed to know is that he played at Ohio State because there's a long list of Ohio State quarterbacks who did not do diddly in the
Yep.
NFL, and I thought he was going to be another one, and I was completely wrong. He's legitimate. There's this is a large enough sample size, and we have seen
Yep.
just jaw-dropping moments, including the fact that he drove them down the field with 46 seconds left, needing a touchdown, and threw that touchdown with 6 seconds left with excellent precision. And so I watched the end of this game because I'm of course sitting there watching my boy Baker have a great game.
Ooh.
And Baker led
Yeah.
the Bucks to the touchdown that they needed, and he left 46 seconds on the clock. And I was like, 46 seconds and a rookie quarterback, lock it up. The Bucks
Yep.
just won, and Baker just did it. And man, respect to CJ Stroud because he just doesn't look like a rookie. Like those
No.
things that you see, and you're like, oh, that's a rookie quarterback working through rookie things. There's
Yep.
nothing about him that looks like a rookie right now. And
Nope.
so like you said, he's not throwing to high end elite talent either. He's just making the right play, making the right read, finding the right receiver. And I do think, yes, he's got that. He's got that award locked up. So this one will be fun. Let me ask you this: did the Big Ten coaches just tell the teacher on Jim Harbaugh? This week, we found out that there was a coaches meeting, a Zoom meeting that was called, and it was concerning the alleged cheating that the rest of the coaches in the Big Ten called unprecedented and said their wins are tainted and fraudulent. And
Uh,
so Michigan has been accused of alleged cheating and having a scout in the stands with recording equipment trying to steal signs from other teams. Apparently, there were tickets purchased to many games over many years, over 30 plus games, over 3 plus years. And so I ask you, Scott Jakeway, did the Big Ten coaches just tell the teacher on Jim Harbaugh?
so I love the way this question is phrased, because yes, they absolutely. I think it's justified. Let's go back. Let's rewind the tape from one episode ago, and I will stick with rules are rules, and they absolutely have every reason to feel jaded by what's happening in Michigan. I think that if we've learned anything from the history of cheaters as the New England Patriots, the Houston Astros. Uh, Cheaters find any and every way of getting an advantage. The old phrase comes to mind: "If the system's not working, work the system." And yeah, they've absolutely tried every angle. And I love how the supporters of Michigan are trying to find ways to justify. Oh, it's not a big deal. Everyone does it. He bought tickets. He's just standing in the stands. It's all garbage because at the end of the day, they knew what they were doing, and these coaches should absolutely feel justified in calling this meeting, feeling as far as the tainted and fraudulent wins that Michigan has put up. Uh, I think that the thing is that if Michigan wasn't just blowing every team out, it'd be like, well, maybe not. But the fact that they are just destroying like every team that they play, I think it's like, okay, they've got to have an upper hand. There's got to be a little something. There's a little meat to the question, and so yes, I think that these coaches had every right to call this meeting, and I think that they will come out to find that Michigan cheated. They're going to get penalized, and I think they should not be kicked out of the playoff this year. I think that they should be
No,
penalized.
no.
I, I
Okay, hold
I
on.
think that they
This
should
no, I cannot take any
completely
more of
get
this.
removed. And that, as I tell my son, unfortunately, you have to learn, and the best way to learn is right when it happens. Don't penalize them 3 years from now. Everyone's going to forget about it. Penalize them now, make it hurt, and no one else is going to do it. If you kick someone out of the playoffs because of something like this, then it's gonna the way you get rid of
Wow.
cheating, the way you get rid of
Wow.
kids and people that try to find a way around the rules is you penalize them. That's why you get tickets when you get pulled over for doing
I
65
know.
miles in a 40.
But- and when people
Come on.
and when they get pulled over, do they go to jail for the rest of their life? Like that's the
No, but they
severity of the punishments you're asking for right now for that speeding ticket. So no,
I
listen. First of all, we need to clarify that the Big Ten commissioner was in on this phone call, and the coaches were asking the Big Ten commissioner to take action to do something. The Big Ten has a sportsmanship policy that would allow the Big Ten commissioner, in certain instances, including this one, to give a punishment to Jim Harbaugh, not the school, but to give the punishment to Jim Harbaugh of a 2 game suspension and up to a $10,000 fine. So he could
we
suspend him up to 2 games and a $10,000 fine. And the reason the coaches are asking for this is because they know the NCAA cannot enforce a punishment this season. They know that the way that the timing works with NCAA investigations, there's up to 90 days for anyone being investigated to respond. And by then, obviously, the season will be over. So let's just get all those facts out so the people listening understand the whole situation. So listen, I hear you. I understand. Rules are rules. If the rules there's a possibility that if you're breaking those rules, no matter how severe or how small, you are subject to punishment. I understand that. But the reason that I have issue with this is because it's a flawed idea. The idea is that, okay, during the game, we're going to hold up these signs on the sideline with a whole bunch of different pictures, like the old school pictures of the Fresh Prince of Bel Air and in orange. And then, like, we're going to hold up different pictures of, like, Taylor Swift. And then we're going to hold up a picture of, like, an alligator. And these are going to be our play signals. And this is absolutely ludicrous in an era of technology that we have now, that people are holding up signs on the sidelines during college football games. Every single college football program has more than enough money for them to do the same thing that the NFL does, which is to put speakers in the quarterback's helmet. Let's just get the play call straight to the quarterback. Let's stop playing these games, because the truth is, every single one of those Big Ten coaches would admit during the game, we are trying to steal signs. During the game, we are looking across the field, trying to figure out your signs so we know what you might be running. So we're okay with it in the game, but if you go next level and you're scouting and trying to figure it out, well, we're not okay with that. Well, then make your signs better. Make your signals better. Figure it out. Okay? This is ridiculous that we're going to this level of investigation and punishment and these allegations and tainted and unprecedented. I don't feel that way at all. I feel like, just as usual, the NCAA hasn't done their job and hasn't stayed up to date and hasn't figured out a way to make sure every college football program has speakers in the helmet for the quarterbacks and coaches to communicate and get the play calls in. So let's level the playing field. Let's make it fair, and let's get speakers and helmets, and let's stop with this silliness. And I say to Jim Harbaugh, you are an excellent coach. Leave Michigan behind. Leave the silliness of the NCAA behind. Go to the NFL. Please, please go help Justin Herbert. Listen, you could do some amazing things with Justin Herbert. Go help Josh Allen. The Sean McDermott era might need to be over, because we're just not seeing any forward movement from the Bills. Jim Harbaugh, come on back to the NFL. The NCAA is a joke.
listen. Just like with every other change that the NCAA makes, it sounds great on paper, and then you've got George Washington Community College that, like, hey, we have like $3 in our bank account. How are we supposed to upgrade our headphones? The
No,
only way, the
no,
only
no.
way
That era
to
is
make this
over. If
fair
they have a football
is
team, it is making money and they can put it in their helmet. Stop. No, don't tell me they're just too poor. That's that's
all I'm
ridiculous.
saying is there's going to always be someone that gets left out when you have something like that. You know, it's really easy to do. Clip art printer, big poster board. Everyone's got the money and funds to
Listen,
do that.
I,
So
I don't believe that. I believe that over years and years and years of printing off those printing, those ink cartridges are expensive. I think they've spent more money. I think that's a logical argument. They have spent more money in printer ink than they would if they just put one helmet with a speaker for the
uh,
quarterback.
okay. I got you. But no, definitely Michigan's getting penalized. I think it's a
More to
joke. It's kind
come.
of like It's kind of like parents that go, "Oh, I slapped Johnny on the wrist because he punched your son in the face." That doesn't do anything. You gotta match the
It just got
penalty.
personal. Little Johnny
Yeah.
got punched in the face.
All
Just
right,
got
we're
real.
we're we're clearly going to disagree on that one. So let's move on to a little thing we like to call "Make Me Believe."
Make me believe.
All right, so Alex, let me ask you this: what matters more? I've got a couple scenarios. I want to hear
Okay.
from you. So let's go with number one. What matters more? Florida State ends the season undefeated, or Washington ends their season undefeated?
Ooh, two undefeateds. It seems as if this question is setting me up to talk about who the final four will be in the college football playoff and whether one of these teams gets left out in the cold. But I
Yep.
have an issue with this question because I don't think there's a world in which Washington ends the season undefeated. Oregon is going
Oh.
to beat them in the rematch in the
Mm.
Pac-12 championship. Oregon is going to beat them. Oregon has looked on fire since that loss at Washington, and Washington has been scraping by. So I don't
Oh.
think Washington is going to end the season undefeated. So I don't think that will be an issue. I think that Florida State will end the season undefeated because their remaining schedule, Florida State's remaining schedule, there are no ranked teams. They'll play the ACC championship. They'll win that easily because the ACC is having, in my opinion, a terrible year. If teams like Clemson, they're 5-4 and not a real threat. And so I think Florida State wins that easily. They'll end up undefeated. I think they have a really soft schedule. So I would be okay with some of the one-loss teams getting in front of Florida State. I know I just offended the entire state of all Floridians, but I'm not impressed with their schedule this year. And I don't think that just
No.
because you finish a really soft schedule undefeated, that if there's a team like an Oregon who lost on a field goal in what was probably the best game of the year, and they finish out the rest of their season with one loss and they beat that same team that they lost to in the Pac-12 championship, I think it's got to be Oregon. So I don't think Washington will even end the season undefeated. So I'm going to say that it matters more that Florida State's season is undefeated because I think it's inevitable. Washington still has two ranked teams to play in Utah and Oregon State.
Here's the thing. My catchphrase for tonight, for those that care, is rewind the tape. I believe the episode right before the Oregon Washington game, you
Stop
said
it
that there
right
was
now.
no shot that Washington's going to win. Oregon's going to dominate them. The immovable
I
object
believe in
and the
redemption,
yeah,
Scott. I
no, like,
believe in redemption, and that's what's going to
listen,
happen.
I've heard this all before. Washington is going to be Oregon. It's not even a question. Oregon's going to get their second loss. Washington's going to remain undefeated. And here's the thing: Florida State. It's kind of a big deal. It kind of matters that they have to remain undefeated for them to have any shot at them having a discussion into the playoffs. If Washington loses to Oregon, like you think that they will, I think that one loss Oregon or one loss Washington has a completely better argument for a playoff spot than an undefeated Florida State. So yeah, I think it matters that they go undefeated because it is so soft. Everyone that came at us this week about us saying Florida State didn't play anyone kept bringing up LSU, like this was
Week one
2000.
LSU.
Yeah, like it
Yeah,
was week one, like it was 2000, what, 2012 again. I mean, it like we're not talking LSU of old. LSU has lost several times. They don't look like the team that everyone claims them to be. That is not the
just lost to
win that you
Alabama.
think it is. I
Yeah.
mean, they just lost to Alabama. LSU, a win over LSU is not the win that you think it is to all the Florida State fans. So, yeah, them going undefeated matters more, I think, because I think Washington can afford to lose one game and still go ahead of them in the playoffs. So, yes, Washington losing does not matter as much as Florida State winning out because that's the only way they have an argument to get into the playoffs. But I digress. So let's go to the next one. My favorite sport, basketball. NBA season has kicked off. We've seen a couple weeks now of some great NBA action. So let me ask you this, Alex. What matters more? Chris Paul playing for the
Okay.
Warriors or James Harden now playing for your LA Clippers?
Not my LA Clippers. You're a joke. Get out of here. You know I'm not a Clippers fan. Don't tell the people that poison. Don't tell the people I'm a Clippers fan. I've never been a Clippers fan a day in my life. So listen, this is
I just set you
this
up.
is simple for me.
That's all that was.
You see the Curry jersey hanging behind me. I am a Warriors fan, and I was skeptical of Chris Paul working there. So far this season, it seems to be working. So quick shout out. I like that. Obviously, Jordan Poole was just not a solution for that team.
Toxic.
I'll leave that alone for now. I'll leave it alone for now. Speaking of toxic, I think what matters more is that James Harden is now playing for the Clippers. I don't know why there's an NBA GM left in the league who thinks putting James Harden and Russell Westbrook together works. It doesn't work on the court. It doesn't work in the locker room. It doesn't work in the media meetings. They are an absolute dumpster fire together, and they feed off of each other. I don't understand why they thought this was a solid move for their team to bring James Harden. He brings so much drama. Look at he has left a wake of teams, just teams just begging to get rid of him, and you fall for it. Like the Sixers begging to get rid of him, the Nets begging to get rid of him. Houston was ready to get rid of. Like this is like he is a problem. And I don't understand why they thought this was worth doing. They already had the pieces they needed to truly compete in the West in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and Terrence Mann. Like there is some serious talent on that team, and you could maybe handle a little bit of Russell Westbrook on your team, but now you've combined them and put them back together. It didn't work in Oklahoma City. It didn't work when they were together in Houston. This was a terrible idea, and I'm sad to say that this matters more because it was a bad idea. But I think good things are coming for Chris Paul and the Warriors. I don't see anything good happening with James Harden playing for the Clippers.
So let me make sure I'm understanding. You're saying that James Harden playing for the Clippers matters more?
Yes, it matters more because the Clippers just did something that I think will ruin their season.
No. I think Chris Paul playing for the Warriors. I just wanted to make sure I had an understanding of your stance because hands down, Chris Paul playing for the Warriors matters more. Chris Paul is one of those true go-getters. He's a fighter. He's always been one of those pieces that fits wherever he goes, and it's because he understands his role. And I think that he understands that going into Golden State, he is not going to be the starting point guard like he has been in other places like Phoenix, just as
Right.
of recent. He's going in there understanding that he is a backup. He's there for when a player gets hurt. He's there to come off the bench if needed. He's there to fit wherever the puzzle piece needs to be. And because of that, it matters more because when you play 82 games in a season, you're going to need those role players. And at the end of the day, James Harden is just toxic, and he's going to literally take what was already a questionable, setup with, PG-13, Kawhi, and Russell Westbrook, and he's literally just going. He's like the strawberry that's moldy. All the other strawberries look good, and then all of a sudden you roll it over and you realize all your good strawberries have now been molded because you let the one
You are
strawberry sit
crushing.
in there.
You are crushing
I
the
mean,
analogies
listen,
tonight. Moldy
it's
strawberries and little Johnny gets punched in the face. I
I
love
mean,
it. Scott
James
Jakeway is
Harden.
on fire.
James Harden is a moldy strawberry to the LA Clippers, whereas Chris Paul is coming in to fit where he needs to be, and he's going to help them, be that long-standing playoff Golden State Warriors that they've always been. And this season, I feel like all their players. I mean, listen, Golden State. They're now talking about should four of the Golden State Warriors from this team be inducted into the Ring of Honor. When you start talking like that, that means your players are old. That means your players don't have very much longer to go. And so you got to bring in someone like a Chris Paul that can say, "Here, I'm not the piece that makes this thing, go, but I am going to be the little peg that holds up all the pieces so that way we can get to the finish line." So I absolutely think Chris
Listen,
Paul
no argument. I
matters
like your
more.
take as
Yeah.
a Warriors fan. I like it. No
Yeah.
argument there.
Yeah.
I'm scared by the toxicity of Harden.
All right, so sticking with basketball, I've got one more for you. This one I like.
Let's
I
go.
think this is going to be an interesting one. Wembyama scoring 38 in a win against the Phoenix Suns, or the
Ooh,
Celtics scoring 155 in a win against the Pacers. What matters more?
what matters more? Well, I'm going to make you believe. I'm going to make you believe what matters more,
Oh,
and I'm going to make you
all right.
believe that Victor Wembanyama is going to score 38 points a billion more times in his career. He's legit. But I didn't start this segment to talk about Victor Wembanyama. You already heard me put him as the number 2 player in the league that I would build my franchise around. The issue that really matters more here is that the Celtics put up 155 points in a win over the Pacers. You're like, the Pacers in the first week of the season, you think that matters, but here's why it matters. It's proving that the moves they made in the offseason to get Drew Holiday, the move that they made in the offseason
Yep.
to get Kristaps Porzingis, it's working. And what Boston has needed for years is consistent offensive scoring that is diverse. All of their offense was coming from Jaylen Brown and from Jason Tatum. And so every time they'd get into these long series in the playoffs, they would get worn down. Now,
Yep.
how do you guard that? How do you guard Porzingis? And how do you guard Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday and Derek White and whoever else they're throwing out there? These guys are putting up into 12, 15, 17, 18, 23. Tatum scores 30. It's coming from every direction. I think, and I'll put my stamp on it now, first week of the season, don't even care. The Boston Celtics will win the East and will be in the NBA Finals. I think it matters
Oof.
way more that the very thing that they needed to become to get over the hump is what is proven by that 155 points in the game over the Pacers.
Okay, so I can't argue your take on the Celtics. I think absolutely you're spot on. However, I think when you are as talked about as Wembyama, as we have seen it over and over again in basketball, number 1 draft pick, these big centers, everyone thinks you're going to be the next big thing, Greg Oden, and all of a sudden you come in, you get injured, and you get forgotten,
Do
and they
not
move on
put
to
the
the next
Greg
guy.
Oden stank. Do not put that Greg Oden stank on Victor Wembanyama. You stop.
All I'm saying is that when you're talked about like he has been, and he is who we thought he was, and he comes in and can do that, I think it is a big deal because you get kind of nervous with these big guys, especially at 7'4" and like 130 pounds soaking wet. I mean, you kind of go, okay, is he going to get broken, the first time that he goes up against a big guy in the middle, like he goes up against, Jokic, and all of a sudden he's just getting snapped in half. But he's shown that no matter how big he is and how skinny he is the real deal. And 38 points against the Phoenix Suns, who many thought were going to be a contender for the Western Conference, I think is a big deal. I don't think it's a fluke. We've seen him come in and already in the first couple weeks produce time and time again. They've gone to like 3 overtimes, which in my mind is something that shows that he's not just falling or crumpling under the pressure of the big lights of the NBA. I think that he is a big deal. I think that it matters that he's able to do that. And I think at the end of the day, he is proving to everyone that he is exactly who we thought he was. So definitely in my mind is a bigger deal, and you can't make me believe anything else. So let's move on to the next segment, a little segment we like to call Don't Be That Guy.
Inspired Sports trademark.
Okay, you totally caught me off guard with that one, but that's exactly what it is. We haven't done this in a couple episodes. Don't Be That Guy is a fan favorite, something that people constantly ask us about. And so I've got to put this out there. Tyreek Hill, when interviewed before Sunday's game versus his old team of the Kansas City Chiefs, your Kansas City Chiefs. Let's go ahead and make it known if anyone didn't know that you are a Kansas City Chiefs fan. He said this: they're going to get this work. And according to Stacey Dales of the NFL Network, Hill had a special TD celebration that he had planned out if he had scored against the Chiefs, in which he would point towards the Chiefs' Andy Reid and say, "You shouldn't have traded me." So, Alex, I need to hear this from a Chiefs fan, from someone that probably used to be a Hill fan. Don't be that guy. What is your take on this so-called TD celebration?
Not only did I love watching Tyreek Hill when he played for the Chiefs, I saw him in person. I saw the speed of the cheetah in person. I saw him in a playoff game in person. Yes, fantastic player. This is one of the most foolish things that he has ever said. And he has said some crazy stuff. This is absolutely ridiculous. And here's a couple reasons. Number one, he got baited by a reporter asking a question, and he said, they gonna get this work. In other words, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna put on a show. And let me tell you, your show turned out to be 8 receptions for 62 yards and no touchdowns in a loss. Now, let's be specific about that loss. The Chiefs beat the Dolphins in Germany 21-14. And that third touchdown that the Chiefs scored was a defensive touchdown. And the Chiefs scooped up a fumble, pitched the ball off the scoop, and Brian Cook ran it all the way to the end zone for a touchdown. Now, here's the question. Who fumbled? Tyreek Hill. Why? I don't know. Maybe because he was thinking about his touchdown celebration and he should have been thinking about holding on to the ball. You've got to be kidding me. Why in the world would you plan a touchdown celebration where you point at Andy Reid and say you shouldn't have traded me when Andy Reid has already won a Super Bowl without you after they traded you? This is absolutely ridiculous. I can't believe he said this, and I want to tell Tyreek Hill something. You're an excellent player, but Tyreek, don't be that guy.
Come on. When you have already in 9 games had a full season full of production, I mean, he's on pace to eclipse 2,000 yards. He is running away, talking about awards already halfway through the season. He's running away with Offensive Player of the Year. There's no one that can touch his production so far. He's reminiscent of the Ocho Cinco, if you will, of our day and age. He is the guy that likes to have fun. He's Ocho Cinco. He's this generation's Ocho Cinco. He's out there to have fun. I would have been shocked. I would have said, don't be that guy if he had not come up with some crazy celebration against his former team. You know, they're in Germany. First of all, I mean, as an extrovert of all extroverts myself, you got to think he's in a foreign country. He's playing against his former team. He's got to think of something big. If I score, I've got to make a statement. I've got to make something big. Did he get carried away a little bit? Of course. But at the end of the day,
he
it's
lost
not that
them
big of a deal.
the game.
In which that it didn't really matter because they're going to meet again in the playoffs, and the Dolphins are going to get their revenge. We're going to be talking in a few weeks when they beat
talk
the
about
Chiefs.
play the tape. We're gonna put that tape aside. You just proclaimed the
down.
Dolphins are gonna beat the Chiefs in the playoffs.
If they meet in the playoffs, which I think they will beat the Chiefs. And I think Tyreek might be able to pull out that TD celebration before the end of the season. And I think this was just all of the setup. They can do this whole flashback. Remember when I fumbled? Oh, it was so sad. We lost the game in Germany. Everyone said that I overdid it. There was this podcast in Arizona and Alabama that said I shouldn't have been this guy, and he can say, "Psych! Look at me. I am that guy. I am him."
You are so hard on Jim Harbaugh and so soft on Tyreek Hill. I don't know.
Listen,
I can't figure you out right now.
I love Tyreek Hill. First of all, not only is he a big talker, but he is proving it. Look at his stats. When you have stats like he has, you get the opportunity to talk a little bit like he talks. Now, if you were pulling numbers like some of these other guys, I would say calm it down a little bit. Don't be that guy. But when you are pulling the numbers that he is, be that guy. Go for it. Have a little fun. It's worth it. That's all I'm saying.
Ridiculous. We are not agreeing on this one. But one thing we do agree on, both of us here at Inspired Sports, is that we believe in ending every episode with something we love to call the moment of truth. We really enjoy sports talk, but obviously the number one passion in my life and in Scott's life is our love of Jesus Christ. And so with each episode, we conclude with a segment that we call the moment of truth, in which we share a short biblical teaching. We converse about it a little bit. We share some thoughts on it, and we hope to encourage you. We hope to inspire you, and we hope to share something with you that you can build your relationship with Jesus on. So for this episode, I have the pleasure of sharing with you something that I would simply title The Milky Way. And no, Inspired Sports did not pick up a new sponsor in the Mars company, though we would be open to that. So all the executives at Mars that are listening, if you would like to sponsor Inspired Sports, we are wide open. That is not a problem. We can make that happen. And no, we're not attempting to explore outer space.
Gmail.com.
Inspired Sportscast at gmail.com. Nice drop.
I mean, if we're going to have a sponsor,
That's it. Let's do it. But what I am attempting to do is to explain a spiritual truth that appears in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, starting in verse 1. And this is what it says. This is Paul writing to the church at Corinth, and he says this: Dear brothers and sisters, when I was with you, I couldn't talk to you as I would to spiritual people. I had to talk to you as though you belonged to this world, or as though you were infants in Christ. I had to feed you with milk, not with solid food, because you weren't ready for anything stronger, and you still aren't ready. Now, when Paul says that he had to feed them with milk, he's referring to the basic teachings of the gospel. He's referring to, I had to give you the basics of being a disciple of Jesus. He's saying that I wanted to share something deeper with you, something stronger, something more challenging. I wanted to give you those kinds of teachings. So, but you're just not ready for it. He actually even goes on to say later, just a few verses later, that aren't you people living like people of the world? And he's saying, hey, it's time for you to grow. It's time for you to go beyond where you're at, and for me to be able to really share some things with you. They're going to help you grow as a disciple of Jesus. But you're simply only able right now to accept spiritual milk. And I think it's important to point out, Scott, that there's a distinct difference between spiritual milk and what I would call spiritual meat. And I think that's really the point that Paul is trying to make right here, is that, that spiritual milk is not enough. And the truth is, milk, whether it's spiritual or physical, milk is something that's been digested by someone else. And that may be a bit graphic, but it's true. And in the realm of spiritual milk, that's the stuff that someone else has studied in their Bible, something that someone else has prayed about, something that someone else has asked the Lord for wisdom or guidance on. It's what your pastor shares with you at your church on Sunday. That message that you hear in church from your pastor, that's not spiritual meat. The only person that's spiritual meat for is him. It's spiritual milk. And it's supposed to be part of our diet as a Christian. And as we're growing and as we're absorbing spiritual truths and learning things, spiritual milk really matters. But the truth is, it's your pastor who studied his Bible to find that, who hunted that down. It's your pastor who prayed about it and thought about it and sought the Lord and asked the Lord, hey, what do I need to know about this? How do I apply this to my life? How do I teach with this? And he's the one that has spiritually digested it. It's really not any different than what you and I share at the end of every episode. We're sharing spiritual milk with our listeners, Scott. Like it's as much as we would want it to be so good for them that it's spiritual meat. It's not. It's simply spiritual milk, and it has its place, and it's super important, and it's part of a balanced spiritual diet. But it's not the same as spiritual meat. Spiritual meat is something that you hunt down yourself. It's something that you find in the Bible. It's something that you realized in prayer. It's something that you received as a revelation from the Holy Spirit. And the truth is, we're supposed to be eating both milk and meat. The only ones, as Paul very clearly states, that live off of just milk are infants. I have a 6-month-old son, and that's the basis of his diet. He's starting to move into solid foods, but for the first, however many months of his life, it's just milk, and it's enough, and it's great, and it's fantastic. But it's time for him to move on, and it's time for him to grow, and he can't grow into who he's supposed to be by having just milk. It's not enough. So I don't come to share this with our listeners, Scott, to say, hey, you're not doing enough, you're not searching enough, you're not studying enough. That's not the point here. But I do have a very clear challenge that I want to share with them. And that is, it's time to discover the joy of hunting. And you've got to love hunting down your meal and hunting down your spiritual food. And it's truthfully, if you could go in a different route, it's treasure hunting. I mean, God gave us a 66 book long love letter called the Bible. And that Bible is full of promises. It's full of wisdom. It's full of guidance. It's full of truth that, man, more than ever before, our world really needs. And that we certainly as believers need to know and need to be able to share and need to be able to apply to our lives. I mean, God has given us the Holy Spirit to guide us into all truth. When you speak of the Holy Spirit in reference in the Bible, the Holy Spirit's called a comforter and a counselor. That's what God's given us, the joy of hunting down your spiritual meat through the Holy Spirit, as your source of revelation. There's so much spiritual meat at our fingertips, we have to stop settling for just milk. It's great. It's part of the diet. You need the milk to digest the meat sometimes. They have to work together. But if you're only having milk, you're going to end up spiritually malnourished. And today, my challenge for all of our listeners is really simple. Take some time. we're so glad you heard this. This little short teaching that we share at the end of every episode is supposed to spur you on to your own time with the Lord, to set aside some time to spend in your Bible, to spend in prayer. When you're praying, not only taking time to speak to the Lord, but to hear from the Lord, to listen to the Holy
Right,
Spirit, to
right, right.
guide, to allow the Holy Spirit to guide you and to speak to you. So our challenge is really simple this week, and our teaching may not be something that you were particularly expecting, but it's just a reminder that if you're living from Sunday to Sunday or Sunday to Wednesday or Wednesday to Sunday, and the only time you're injecting spiritual truth and spiritual food into your life is if it's coming from someone else, then it's just spiritual milk. It's time for you to start hunting down your own spiritual meat.
Man, Alex, that is so good. The thing that comes to mind is, when you were saying that what your pastor on a Sunday or, wherever you go to church, that's spiritual milk. If
Right.
you were in the natural to take a glass of milk and on Sunday take a drink of it and it's nice and cold and it's refreshing, it hits the spot, it kind of just kickstarts you, but then you put it on a shelf and you were to not come back to it until next Sunday, it would be rotten. It would be kind of outdated. It would smell a little bit. And I'm not necessarily suggesting that, your sermon, your pastor's sermon is only good for Sunday morning. But if that is the only time that you are digesting milk, then it's going to
No, that's good.
eventually not only is it not going to be sustainable as you get older in your walk with Christ, but it's also going to spoil, and you have to be able to
Right.
consume some meat to go along with that milk, and it also it's complementary, right? Like sometimes it can,
Yeah.
like if you go to church expecting meat and he's your pastor's handing milk, it can feel a little disappointing. Like, man, I was really hoping that my pastor would really be bringing the meat, and all I got was milk. But when you
Yeah.
understand that his job
that
is
my
to
that my
bring
pastor's message was going to solve every issue of my life,
exactly,
and it was going to be every single word I needed to
yeah.
hear, and it was going to be
So
brought straight to me. I wasn't going to have to do anything for it.
exactly, it can feel like almost like a
Yeah.
bait and switch, right? Like I
Yeah.
felt like if I go to church on Sundays that I'm gonna get the meat that I need to sustain my week. When the whole idea is that's your milk. That's supposed to be the complementary to what you're getting
Yeah.
every day yourself. Diving into the meat of the
The
word.
cherry on top.
So exactly. So when you understand that and you have that right like paradigm of what your pastor is supposed to provide you on Sundays or
Yeah.
Wednesdays, one, not only does it make it easier to consume and not feel like, wait a second, why am I getting this? You're like, okay, yeah, I'm getting the milk. But then it's also an encouragement to go down and go, okay, I can't survive only on milk. So now I have to wake up on Monday and go get
Yeah.
my own meat. And so it's one of
Yeah.
those encouragements and also complimentary. Like I need both. I need a little milk. I need a little meat. I need a little milk. I need a little meat. And so when you
Yeah.
have that understanding, it really allows the Lord to illuminate, when you're diving into your word. So great message, man. I really appreciate it. Absolutely a challenge. I love it. Sometimes our endings are encouraging, which I love, but then sometimes it's challenges to where it's like, okay, we build up, but we also challenge, and we want to make sure
Yeah.
that
And
we're
I
we're
think
bringing that.
Oh, absolutely. I know I've needed that at times in my life, just the reminder that like, hey, am I really taking the time
Right.
and putting in the effort to find my own spiritual meat and to grow spiritually? Especially
Right.
because this is the most important thing in our lives. It's our relationship with Jesus. So I know that that's been something I've needed to hear, and so we hope that it's encouraged all of our listeners and reminded all of our
Absolutely.
listeners of just kind of right where we need to be each week. So we hope you enjoyed that. We hope you enjoyed all the sports talk, and we hope you continue to listen to Inspired Sports, your place for clean sports talk with real inspiration.